Hey, hello ladies and gentlemen, Maradon here, and I am going to be making a tutorial on the game Celeste. Now, first of all, to introduce myself, as I said, I'm Maradon. I am a Celeste speedrunner with an ending percent time of 31 minutes, 51 seconds, and 225 milliseconds. So, I've run this game a lot, and I definitely would consider myself qualified to be able to make a tutorial like this. This particular tutorial is just going to be a very basic tutorial for people who don't really know much about Celeste. So, if you're just getting into the game, you don't know anything about it, that's perfectly fine. A few housekeeping things. I am playing on version 1.4 of this game. If you're playing on an earlier version, perhaps because you're on console and 1.4 hasn't come out for you yet, that shouldn't be an issue. That's not going to affect anything we're going to talk about today. If you're playing on a later version that might come out after this tutorial, though I don't know how that's going to affect things because I don't know what would be in that patch, but most likely it still wouldn't affect anything we're going over today. I am on PC and I'm playing on keyboard, however this tutorial should be perfectly applicable even if you do play on console or on PC but with a controller. You'll just have to translate everything to the buttons you would push on your controller. So Celeste is primarily going to be using 7 buttons. So we have the arrow keys here that you can see in my input display. And then by default it's going to be C for jump, X for dash, and then Z for climb. And in this case that climb caused for this traffic block to move. That's something we'll talk about a little bit later. In the case of jumping, you can do a little jump by just tapping the C key, or you can get a higher jump by holding it. And so that's something that's going to be very useful. There's various reasons why you might want to get a shorter or a larger jump. Casually, just for the purpose of getting over gaps, you will usually want to do a larger jump. And that's just going to give you the largest frame window for getting over gaps. In the case of dashing, you have 8 dash directions, so you can dash in your 4 cardinal directions and dash out of the air as well. You can dash in the 4 diagonals, and you can only dash once before touching the ground again. So if I dash up here, you can see my hair has turned blue, and if I try to dash again, I cannot do it until I hit the ground. Now my hair has turned red, indicating I can dash again. So, and you'll see my hair turns blue for just a little bit while I am just, even if I'm dashing along the ground. That's because you have a bit of a dash timer, so there's a certain length of time between dashes you can do. And then as far as climbing goes, so you have a certain limited store of stamina, and so if I just sit here, you'll see eventually Madeline is going to get tired and I'm going to fall, which is going to happen here in just a second. There you see, I'm getting tired and I fall. And you see I held climb that whole time. Now, as far as getting around, so you can kind of slide down, you can climb up like this just by using the arrow keys, and I'll get tired eventually like that. Or I can actually climb up using the jump key while I'm holding climb, and so that's going to get me up much faster. You can climb jump in that way up to 4 times. One thing that's worth noting is doing a wall kick like this, jumping while you're not holding climb and jumping away from the wall in that way, that does not use any stamina at all. And so if I were to get kind of this back and forth motion going between 2 walls, like that's not using up any stamina at all. And so let me actually show a good example of that, where this is a way that you can climb. So like this is not using any stamina at all. And so if you're looking to preserve stamina, that is a really good way to do it. So we've gone over the various basic inputs. And so I want to go over a couple of things. One is this crystal here. So you see right now Madeline has blue hair, indicating I cannot dash. As soon as I run into that crystal, you're going to see Madeline's hair color change to the red, and I'll be able to dash again. So this is a dash refill crystal. And so whenever you run into it, if you don't have a dash, then it will restore your dash. If I have my dash already, it just won't do anything. Madeline will go straight through it. Although it's worth noting that if I run out of stamina, then it will crack and my stamina will be restored. 2, 3, 4. So if you are out of stamina, or if you have used your dash, then you will get the crystal and it will restore both. Now, the other thing, these are spikes, so if you hit them, then you will die. They actually have a much smaller hitbox than you think, so you can see like the tops of the spikes don't actually have a hitbox, so you can get pretty close to them actually. Like that's the closest I can get. This is 1 pixel from dying. And so my green hitbox is the one that matters for the purposes of spikes. My red hitbox does matter for the purpose of like solid things, but for the purpose of spikes, it's the green hitbox there. I am playing on a modded version of Celeste so that I can show you this sort of thing. One thing to note, when I was talking about arrow keys for movement, you can duck in this game. So this is what Madeline looks like ducking. And that does give you a smaller hitbox, and that can be useful in some cases. One very big thing to note is momentum. So this is a traffic block, and when you grab it, or when you land on it, but this one has spikes on top, so for the purpose of this one, it's going to be when we grab it, it will kind of travel very quickly on a track, and then it will travel slowly back. We can use this for momentum, so you can see here, we can use it to get all the way over here. And momentum carries very nicely in Celeste, even across screens. So if I were to like get a lot of speed from one screen, it will carry over to another screen. So that's something to keep in mind when we're talking about, so like if I dash here, you see I kind of continued my dash to the other side. And dashes are refilled actually, not just from hitting the ground, but also from transitioning screens. You can see here, I can dash back and forth here without ever touching the ground. And so now that we've gone over kind of all of the basic movements of Celeste, I want to go ahead and go through a couple of screens with you applying these. And in my opinion, these 2 screens that we're going to go over are probably the most difficult in 1A casually. And so here, I'm going to turn off hitboxes. So we need to make it to that dash refill crystal, so we're going to jump out and dash up and grab. Then we're going to wall kick to the dash crystal and dash over to this platform, refilling our dash. Now here, we're going to jump and dash, refilling our dash on this platform. And now the bottom of this left little pit is all spikes, so we want to make it to that left wall. So we're going to jump off and dash to that left wall, grabbing, and then wall climb up. We'll refill our dash and stamina on this little platform, and then we can climb out. Now, we could have, as I showed earlier, just not used any stamina to climb up there by kicking between the walls. I didn't do that just for purposes of this demonstration. Now here we have a spring. This is just going to spring us upward. And this is going to refill our dash and any stamina that we may have used. So, you know, it works kind of like touching the ground in that way. Touching a spring is the same as touching the ground. So, oh, actually, we're going to be going over 3 screens, sorry. So here, we're going to spring up. We're going to wall kick and dash over to this traffic block, where we can jump over. This is a crumbly block, and I'm actually glad that I died there to show you. These crumble away after a moment, so we need to jump to it and then jump off quickly so that we can dash over here to avoid the spikes. Next, we're going to go into the next screen. This is one that I think a lot of people struggle with. And casually, I think this can be a very intimidating screen, but once people get to understand it, I think that people will find that it's really not that bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump out and dash up, grabbing this left wall and refilling our dash on this little wooden platform. And then we're going to jump out and dash upright to here. we can just climb up and refill our dash and stamina up here. And next we're going to jump off and we're going to grab this kind of lower ice section below where we're standing. It's going to cause it to fall. So we're going to climb down just a little, and then we're going to jump off and dash upright and make it here. And so those are just blocks that fall when you grab them. They work kind of like the traffic blocks where they're activated by grabbing them. And so this has just been kind of an application of everything that we have talked about. And I hope that this has been very useful for the basic movement of Celeste.